Okay, let me set this up. I'm going to do a video talking about the hotel and the progress that it's making downtown. You know, the Marriott, I'm looking at it right now. I took a still shot from as of today, May 1st, 2019, as to the progress of the hotel. When I've shown video or actually did a video about the hotel and I gave a screenshot, it was at nighttime. You couldn't really see a whole lot of detail. And basically, they had only so much of the curtain wall, the glass facade up. And now they've added a little bit more. This is a very large building, so it takes time, obviously, but they're moving along pretty steady, believe it or not. But I'm going to give kind of my impressions of this building. And to me, this structure is going to really stick out, almost like a sore thumb. If you go downtown, you don't see a lot of, in downtown Tacoma, you don't see a lot of glass buildings. And in fact, the developer was going to put more glass than what you see. I mean, if you notice on the side, there looks like there's some sort of like, it looks like concrete panels. I don't know exactly what it is, what material that is. And then you see the glass windows because it's obviously a hotel. On the front, you see nothing but pure glass because obviously that's facing Commencement Bay. So anyone that is in that general area wants to be able to look out and see the water. Duh. So I get that. The others, basically, the side profiles are facing downtown. One side is facing where the crane is. That side is facing towards the Tacoma Town Center. The other side is facing where the convention center is facing the convention center and the rest of downtown where you get all of the bigger buildings. Now, this building is going to be the second tallest building in the city. And it's barely going to be shorter than the first tallest building, which I forget the name of it, but it doesn't matter. But to be honest with you, I don't know what it's going to look like to be at the end because when you look at renderings of this building, it has changed so much. And I think because the developer didn't want it to be too much of a sore thumb. When you look at Tacoma, it is so underdeveloped in terms of the potential that it has that you put anything too sparkly and shimmery down there, it's going to really stand out. We have a lot of historic buildings, and the folks here take pride in those historic buildings, and they should. But I guess they did not want something that just really stood out so much. If you notice, in front of it is basically a suburban style courtyard Marriott Hotel. Now, I don't know when this building was built, the courtyard motel. It was, or hotel, I should say. It was built, basically, it looks like it is a 6-story building. Retail down below. But to be honest with you, that's commonplace here in Tacoma, and that's a waste of space. In my opinion. I think that when you look at Tacoma, and again, this building could have been built 10, 15 years ago. I don't know, and it's not important. But what is important is the fact that there's a common theme here where most of the construction going on downtown are all of these little mid-rise buildings. And it has been that way for a while. The fact that we're getting a hotel that cracks above 12 stories is just a shock. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at the building now, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. I guess, let me make sure. I can't see from here. 2, 4, 6, 8. So they're working on the 8th floor as far as putting the curtain wall up. And if you look at the construction now, let's see, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Even right now, by Tacoma standards, this is a high rise. This is a skyscraper because nothing gets built this tall. It doesn't happen here. And is it annoying? Yes. Very annoying. But again, I'm not the one that's putting in the money for these types of things, and developers obviously have to work with their investors and what makes sense and all of that, so I get it. Now, so I understand the developer didn't want it to stand out too much, so they changed the outside scheme of this. But certain things I want you to pay attention to. First, the building on the far left, the brick building, is basically down below a nice sushi place, which it changed ownership, so hopefully that will continue. The sushi joint will continue, but the building is made out of brick and stone and things like that. Well, based on some of the renderings, and I don't know if this is going to continue, but based on some of the renderings for this hotel, they're going to put all of the stuff you see in yellow in the same scheme, where it's basically that brick and stone facade, right? So all of what you see there that's in yellow, which is basically insulation, they're going to put in brick and stone. Now, I think it should match the hotel structure. I think that it should all be glass, to be honest with you. Now, of course, a glass facade would be much more expensive. I get it. But to me, it would look a lot better when we're talking about the convention center, the flow of the convention center. It would look a whole lot better to have all of that as glass. Because if you notice I don't know, I'm looking at it a little too deep, I guess. But if you look at the angle of the building, and the way that it's pictured is exactly the angle. This was a live shot that was done. Right now it's 2:10. This picture is actually from 2 o'clock. So I did it right before this video. And so if you look at the brick building, it's kind of at an angle. So it kind of shows you that this is a completely different building. And I get that they're trying to make it all one block. I get it. But to me, it would look better being all glass. Now, if you notice something back where the crane is, if you notice back there, there's like a there's like a metal structure that they're working on back there, right? Looks like a pedestal. It's a metal frame that's going up back there behind it. And that metal frame has been rising slowly. Now, remember, this building is being built by the Chinese through an EB-5 program. EB-5 basically means if you're an investor, you invest a certain amount of money into a project, you basically can become a citizen of the U.S. You go through the whole process a lot faster and that type of thing. You become a resident. It helps you with that process, right? And so, because you're investing in the American economy. So this particular hotel project is like $125 million. But to build the extra structure, it's an extra $85 million. Now, here's the thing. The developers are from China, and they said they wanted to build a 2-tower system. The first tower would be the hotel, and if things made sense and the economy was great, then they would build the second tower, which would be mostly residential, so all apartments. And their main target was the University of Washington Tacoma, because right across the street, so as you're looking at that brick building and you see the side street right there next to it, right over on the other side of that street is the University of Washington Tacoma. You can literally walk to it. Actually, on campus, you can look right at it, and it's right there. So it makes sense for them to advertise for UWT students because, again, UWT doesn't have a whole lot of apartment buildings or their own dorms and that type of thing. They have one building. There are a lot of other developers who are competing for the same market. So you have a lot of people who are now trying to get the same little small groups of students, and we'll see how that goes. But I bring up that metal structure in the back for a reason, because if you look at it, it looks very similar, because these are supposed to be twin towers. It looks very similar to the same footprint of the hotel tower. If you look at it, the same length. Now, when you look at renderings, and I go back to that, which is kind of iffy, the renderings show that the second tower would go up similar to that particular spot, and it would mostly face the wide side would face Commencement Bay, which makes sense because if you're facing the water, you're going to be paying much more money. And if you're facing basically north of there is like the hilltop area. If you're facing that, the prices are going to be a little bit cheaper. So it all matters, like whether you're on the top floor, bottom floor, facing the water, not facing the water. That's going to determine a lot of different things, right? I hate that that gets blurry like that. Sorry. Okay. So, anyhow, it looks like they're building the second tower because recently a bank gave them $85 million to help speed up the process for the second tower. Now, they have not made any news. Now, keep in mind, the developer for this project is not the same developer for the town center, but they do have some sort of a relationship, and I don't know the full details of that. I know that they were managing the parking garage situation here because the convention center has a parking garage, and they were managing the ramp construction process, and they were still working on the Tacoma Town Center piece. So both are Chinese developers. Both are using the EB5 program. They're different developers, but there is a little bit of a relationship there. Now, with that said, I bring that up because both are competing for University of Washington Tacoma students. The Town Center project, if you go there now, that particular site has the student apartment structure, which it seems like it's going to be strictly for students. Based on the documents and the details that they list, everything's kind of vague. Okay, with both projects, if you go to their actual site, their developer site, things are kind of vague. But it seems like they're already pretty much done. They're basically putting the outside cladding on that building. I would say probably by the end of this month or the middle of next month, so probably the middle of June, that building would be mostly done on the outside. I mean, there's not a lot to do. They have a retail space down below that they need to work on, but basically it's a parking garage and a building on top that sits about 5 floors up. So in total, that building is about 8 stories tall. It's a pretty decent sized structure. And so that part is done. The next phase that they're actually working on is the giant retail space, which is either going to be a grocery store or a movie theater, and they're still working on it. But I bring that up because they're obviously trying to get those UWT students. And then when you look at the this project with the hotel, they're already, it looks like, possibly working on the hotel piece, or at least building the pedestal for it to sit on. Now, it's supposed to be equal height, but that is the exact location. If you look at it, and maybe I'm wrong, there are some people here in Tacoma or in this region that really, really, really follow this stuff down to a T, and they would know better than I do. There's also folks that deal with large scale construction. They would be able to tell me a little bit better. But from the looks of it, it looks like they're working on the second tower back there, because that metal structure you see is all a part of this particular construction. It wasn't there. Also, work on the hotel part of it has slowed a little bit. It seems like they're working on the outside facade a lot faster. Before, they were just adding floor. They were just building up quick. That has slowed down, it seems, a little bit. They're still adding floors. It still has a ways to go, but they're working a lot on the outside and a lot on that back piece. So it seems like they're going to be building that piece. At the time, they didn't say when they were going to finish it. They weren't really sure if they were going to start the apartment part of that, but it seems like that's in full gear. If that is the case, Tacoma will get 2 big tall towers. Hopefully both of them will be glass. Again, from the renderings, it shows that. But we will get two tall towers that will actually be in this particular spot. To be honest with you, the one of the reasons why they're building this is, again, of course, UWT. It makes sense. It makes sense in terms of finances for them. It makes sense in terms of just everything. But one of the things that I'm concerned with is transportation. And I don't think Sound Transit has really thought about it much, and I don't know if the city is thinking about it as much as they should, or as concerned about it as they should. I think they're really pushing for a car-free downtown as much as possible, and we rely on public transit and other modes. I get it. But one of the things I've noticed about McMenamins was when we got on the train, it was packed. As packed as you see the true light rail trains are in Seattle. It was packed. As packed as what you see at the South Lake Union streetcar, that type of pack. It was crowded with people. Now that was during rush hour. It was packed. At nighttime, it still had a few people on it. Keep in mind, I did a video talking about basically there's going to be about 600 and something units being added just over 3 projects, over 1,000 people potentially being added to the downtown core. That's not counting this particular structure, which will go up, and it's going to add a huge number of people. That's not counting the town center, which is going to add a lot of people. And I bring this up because McMenamins is at the end of the theater district line for the Tacoma Link Light Rail. We have a small streetcar, same ones that you see in Portland, the same ones you see in Cincinnati. Well, it's a different make, but similar to what you see in most cities that have a streetcar. It can't handle the load because if you notice, and I know that they're talking about getting longer streetcars or something like that, bigger streetcars. They're going to update and do a lot of different things, so it's going to be needed because all of these people are not going to be able to make this thing work because it's going to just be overcrowded. There's the old Washington Bank building is a big building. I mean, it's almost as tall as what you see here in this image of the hotel, present day. And both of those big columns, it's a huge building. Both of those are going to be nothing but apartments. And that's right in the core of downtown. So they're changing that out. Everything else is going to be apartments around there. There's other projects, big and small, in between here. And so they're really and truly relying on the Link Light Rail. If you ever want to see a project where a light rail or streetcar works very well, this is an example because it's working a little too good. That is my concern in terms of just the transit part of this. I don't know how it's going to work. I know that this hotel, when we went to McMenamins and came back, was buzzing. The Courtyard Hotel right there was buzzing. Also, not far, you can't see it in this image, is Hotel Murano, which is the tallest hotel we have right now. Beautiful hotel. All of those rely on this convention center station stop. So then you throw in a huge apartment building, which students are going to be taking that as well when they're going to different parts of downtown. Keep in mind there's a grocery store in the Stadium District where this will, once we have the expansion, it's going to go by. As well as the medical campus, which is a mile long of nothing but medical facilities. When they get the Hilltop Station in, this entire corridor is going to be pretty busy. It already is. Busier than I've ever seen it, and I've lived here for over 2 years now and taken the link occasionally. I've never seen it as crowded as it has been recently. We'll see, but it looks like to me, if you guys can tell me what you think. It looks like to me they're adding a second building back there, which was supposed to be delayed. They've never made any mention of it. Similar to the town center, a lot of things have changed and they haven't really talked about it publicly. It seems like they're just working behind the scenes, working with the city, keeping things kind of quiet. But it looks like to me they're about to erect another building. I would say probably in the next month or so we'll know for certain, because obviously the framing will go up. If you notice, the crane is pointing directly at that particular area too. So it's in a good position to build both buildings really at the same time. If you really and truly look at it, the crane, which doesn't have to move, is directly over that steel structure that's in the background of that. So anyhow, can ramble on about it forever. Let me know what you guys think. Hope you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.